We have you on camera. 11 laptops, 11 bags. Step away from the belt now.
Atlanta, Georgia. Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, the busiest airport on the planet. On any given day, roughly 150,000 checked bags move through its terminals. Passengers drop them at the counter, watch them disappear down a conveyor belt, and trust that what goes in comes out the other side. That trust is not blind faith. It is backed by a federal agency, a set of security procedures, and the people hired to carry them out. Marcus Teller was one of those people. Not a junior officer working his first year. A lead supervisor. 12 years in. The man who ran the shift, set the schedule, and oversaw the secondary screening stations where flagged bags got opened and checked by hand. He had federal credentials. He had authority over the officers working under him. And he had access to the one section of that airport that passengers never see and cannot watch. The restricted baggage processing area, where their belongings sat open on a steel table with no one around but him. He knew the building. He knew the procedures. He knew exactly where the cameras pointed and exactly where they didn't. For a long time, nobody knew what he was doing with that knowledge. Then a software engineer checked a bag with a company laptop inside, and that laptop had an $11 GPS chip under its chassis. That changed everything. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport moves more passengers than any other airport in the world. Over 100 million people pass through it every year. That is not a typo. On a single average day, roughly 150,000 checked bags enter its system, dropped off at counters, loaded onto conveyor belts, and fed through a chain of machines and human hands before they reach the plane. The airport does not slow down. It does not have quiet days. It runs at full speed, every hour, every day of the year. The TSA's job inside that machine is specific. Officers screen checked bags for dangerous items, weapons, explosives, anything that cannot travel in an aircraft hold. When the automated scanning system flags a bag, it gets pulled out of the main flow and sent to a secondary inspection station. There, a TSA officer opens it by hand, checks the item that triggered the alert, repacks the bag, and sends it on. That process happens hundreds of times a day at Hartsfield-Jackson alone. A lead supervisor like Marcus Teller sat above that process. He did not just perform secondary inspections, he oversaw them. He had the authority to clear flagged bags, manage which officers worked which stations, and access the restricted baggage processing zones where that hands-on work took place. And here is the part that matters. Supervisors conducting secondary inspections were not required to have a second officer present. The policy had been written that way on purpose. Having two people at every inspection slows things down. At an airport moving 150,000 bags a day, efficiency is not optional. So the rule allowed a supervisor to work alone. That rule was written for speed. It also created something else, unwitnessed access to open passenger bags, with no one required to be in the room. The camera system in the supervisory bay was supposed to cover that gap. There were 3 cameras mounted in that section of Terminal F. 2 had clear sight lines. The third did not. In 2019, a conveyor expansion project installed a new unit that partially blocked that camera's view. Not completely, but enough to create a dead zone at one of the inspection tables. The obstruction was noticed. A maintenance technician logged it in a report in 2020. No one ever moved the camera. The report sat in the system. The dead zone stayed. And the table it covered remained exactly where it was, accessible, unmonitored, and waiting. Marcus Darnell Teller was not a stranger to Hartsfield-Jackson. He was practically raised in its shadow. He was born in 1981 in College Park, Georgia, a small city that sits 4 miles south of the airport. The planes flew over his neighborhood every day. The airport was not some distant landmark. It was just part of the sky above his house. His father, Ronald, worked as an HVAC technician, spending long days fixing heating and cooling systems in office buildings across the Atlanta metro area. His mother, Patricia, worked in a school cafeteria, up early every morning to feed other people's children before her own day was done. His younger brother, Dion, eventually found his own way to the airport. He has worked Delta ground crew for the past several years. The Tellers were a working family. Steady people. Nobody handed them anything. Marcus graduated from Banneker High School in 2001. He enrolled at Georgia Perimeter College the following fall, but he only made it through 1 year. His family needed more money coming in, and college felt like a luxury that would have to wait. He left and found work at one of the food service vendors operating inside Hartsfield-Jackson, serving meals, learning the rhythms of the building, watching the airport operate from the inside. He did that for 2 years. In 2004, he saw a TSA job posting. Federal employment, health insurance, a pension, stable hours, and a paycheck that wouldn't disappear if business got slow. He applied. He passed the background check, the drug screening, and the security assessment. He completed his training and was assigned to Hartsfield-Jackson, the airport he had grown up beside and already knew better than most new hires ever would. His early years were unremarkable in the best way. He showed up. He did the work. His performance reviews were consistently satisfactory. He developed a reputation among his colleagues for running tight, efficient secondary screening rotations, the kind of officer supervisors did not have to chase or correct. In 2016, after 12 years on the floor, he was promoted to lead supervisor. He was one of the youngest people in Terminal F to hold that title. By 2022, he was earning $67,400 a year with full federal benefits and pension accrual. He had been inside that building for nearly 2 decades. He knew the layout of every processing zone. He knew the supervisory protocols by memory. He knew the camera positions in the baggage handling areas. He knew which shift windows had the fewest supervisors on the floor and the least amount of oversight. He knew all of it. He had not yet decided what to do with that knowledge. The first theft did not feel like the beginning of something. It felt like a solution. And once a problem has a solution, it is very hard to stop reaching for it. By February 2022, Marcus was taking 1 laptop per week. By May, that number had crept up to 1.5, some weeks 2, occasionally a high-end tablet or a mirrorless camera when one presented itself. The operation had developed its own internal logic, and that logic was surprisingly disciplined. He did not take everything. He never cleared out a bag. He had a floor, nothing with a resale value below $600, and he had a target profile. Bags from flights originating in San Francisco, Seattle, Austin, and Boston. Tech corridors. Cities full of software engineers, product managers, and consultants who traveled frequently and packed expensive equipment. Business travelers who moved fast, checked bags out of convenience, and were just distracted enough that a missing laptop might feel, at first, like their own mistake. Like they had left it at the hotel. Like it had slipped out during a connection. He never took the charger. That detail was deliberate. A bag with a laptop missing but a charger still inside looks like a packing error. A bag with both gone looks like a theft. He always left the bag visually intact, zipped back up, contents undisturbed except for the one item that was no longer there. The goal was not just to steal. The goal was to make the theft feel like something else. For resale, he built a seller profile on Swappa, a second-hand electronics marketplace with a large and active user base. The account name was ATL_dev sales. Every listing read the same way, excellent condition, minor use. Payments came in through Zelle, deposited into a secondary bank account that had no visible connection to his name on the surface. Between November 2021 and March 2023, ATL_dev sales completed 47 transactions. Total revenue, approximately $58,000. None of it showed up in his life in any visible way. Same apartment he had lived in for 6 years. Same car. No new furniture, no vacations, no purchases that would make anyone look twice. Patricia's medical bills got paid on time every month. His own bills got paid. The money moved quietly through an account nobody knew to look for, attached to a name nobody connected to him. His face was not on the Swappa profile. His name was not on the Zelle account. His real identity was not on anything connected to ATL_dev sales. The concealment was not accidental. The invisibility was the entire strategy. The first theft did not feel like the beginning of something. It felt like a solution. And once a problem has a solution, it is very hard to stop reaching for it. By February 2022, Marcus was taking 1 laptop per week. By May, that number had crept up to 1.5, some weeks 2, occasionally a high-end tablet or a mirrorless camera when one presented itself. The operation had developed its own internal logic, and that logic was surprisingly disciplined. He did not take everything. He never cleared out a bag. He had a floor, nothing with a resale value below $600, and he had a target profile. Bags from flights originating in San Francisco, Seattle, Austin, and Boston. Tech corridors. Cities full of software engineers, product managers, and consultants who traveled frequently and packed expensive equipment. Business travelers who moved fast, checked bags out of convenience, and were just distracted enough that a missing laptop might feel, at first, like their own mistake. Like they had left it at the hotel. Like it had slipped out during a connection. He never took the charger. That detail was deliberate. A bag with a laptop missing but a charger still inside looks like a packing error. A bag with both gone looks like a theft. He always left the bag visually intact, zipped back up, contents undisturbed except for the one item that was no longer there. The goal was not just to steal. The goal was to make the theft feel like something else. For resale, he built a seller profile on Swappa, a second-hand electronics marketplace with a large and active user base. The account name was ATL_dev sales. Every listing read the same way, excellent condition, minor use. Payments came in through Zelle, deposited into a secondary bank account that had no visible connection to his name on the surface. Between November 2021 and March 2023, ATL_dev sales completed 47 transactions. Total revenue, approximately $58,000. None of it showed up in his life in any visible way. Same apartment he had lived in for 6 years. Same car. No new furniture, no vacations, no purchases that would make anyone look twice. Patricia's medical bills got paid on time every month. His own bills got paid. The money moved quietly through an account nobody knew to look for, attached to a name nobody connected to him. His face was not on the Swappa profile. His name was not on the Zelle account. His real identity was not on anything connected to ATL_dev sales. The concealment was not accidental. The invisibility was the entire strategy. While Marcus Teller was building a system, the agency that employed him was receiving signals that something was wrong. Those signals were clear enough. What happened to them after they arrived is the part that needs to be examined carefully. Between November 2021 and March 2023, 9 passengers filed formal theft complaints through the TSA's claims process. All 9 involved electronics, laptops, tablets, cameras, reported missing from checked bags on flights that had been processed through Terminal F at Hartsfield-Jackson. 9 people, across 16 months, describing the same type of loss, from the same terminal, during the same window of time. 8 of those complaints were closed as unsubstantiated within 45 days. The resolution language was the same in nearly every case. Available footage did not confirm theft by TSA personnel. The claims were reviewed individually. The footage was checked, and when the footage did not show a clear theft, which footage from a camera bay with a known obstructed sight line frequently would not, the file was closed. The passenger received a letter. The matter was considered resolved. One complaint was still sitting in the pending pile when the investigation finally opened. 0 of the 9 complaints were cross-referenced against shift rosters to identify which TSA personnel had been on duty during each incident. 0 triggered a referral to the TSA's Inspector General Office. 0 were pulled together and examined as a group to determine whether they shared a common time window, a common terminal, or a common officer. During the same 16-month period, the TSA conducted an internal audit of Terminal F security operations. That audit reviewed staffing levels, screening procedures, equipment maintenance, and compliance with federal guidelines. It flagged 0 anomalies. It did not flag the 9 theft complaints. It did not flag the camera obstruction that had been sitting in a maintenance report since 2020. It did not flag the absence of a co-witness requirement for supervisory secondary inspections. Here is what the record shows. The complaints existed. The documentation existed. The maintenance report existed. The shift logs existed. Everything that would have been needed to identify Marcus Teller as a suspect existed inside the TSA's own systems before a single outside investigation was opened. The mechanism to connect those things to each other did not exist. No one was required to look at the 9 complaints together. No algorithm flagged the pattern. No supervisor pulled the data and asked why Terminal F was generating that many electronics theft claims in that period. Nobody ran the query. Derek Okafor was 34 years old, a software engineer based in Atlanta, and on the morning of March 3, 2023, he checked a bag at Hartsfield-Jackson for a flight to Seattle. Inside that bag was a work-issued ThinkPad X1 Carbon, company property, fully asset tagged, with a GPS tracking chip embedded under the chassis. It was standard equipment for his employer's remote workforce, the kind of laptop that gets issued, logged, tracked, and accounted for. Not because anyone expected it to be stolen, just because that is how his company managed its devices. When Derek landed in Seattle and opened his bag, the laptop was gone. He filed a TSA claim that same evening. He described the laptop, provided the flight details, and submitted everything the form asked for. 4 weeks later, a letter arrived. His claim had been reviewed. Available footage did not confirm theft by TSA personnel. The matter was closed. Derek Okafor did not hire a lawyer. He did not call a journalist. He opened the asset tracking software his employer used to manage company devices and typed in the ThinkPad serial number. The laptop was online. It had connected to a home Wi-Fi network in College Park, Georgia, 4 miles from Hartsfield-Jackson. Approximately 12 hours after it had disappeared from his checked bag. The GPS coordinates were precise. The device ID was a perfect match. The ThinkPad was not lost. It was sitting in someone's home, connected to their internet, in the city where the airport was located. On April 1, 2023, Derek sent the IP address, the device ID, and the GPS coordinates to the TSA Inspector General's office in a single email. The IG opened a formal investigation the same day. Investigators ran the asset tag and the GPS location together. The address in College Park resolved to a name, Marcus Darnell Teller. Lead Supervisor, Terminal F, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. A search warrant was executed on April 7th. Inside Marcus Teller's apartment, investigators found 11 laptops. 9 of them still had airline baggage tags attached. The ATL_dev sales account on Swappa was traced through its Zelle payment history to a bank account registered in Marcus Teller's name. 47 transactions. 16 months. $58,000. All of it documented and sitting in the records of a platform he had trusted to keep him invisible. On April 11, 2023, at 6:18 in the morning, investigators walked into Terminal F. Marcus Teller was alone in the supervisory bay, conducting a secondary inspection. He heard footsteps. He turned. Marcus, step away from the belt. We need you to come with us right now. Marcus Teller was indicted on 9 counts of theft of interstate shipments and 2 counts of wire fraud. In September 2023, he entered a guilty plea on all counts. Sentencing was held that fall. The courtroom included people who had never met Marcus Teller, but whose lives had been quietly damaged by his decisions. A graduate student from Boston described losing a laptop that contained 18 months of research data. No cloud backup. No recovery. The work was simply gone. A photographer from Austin had lost a camera body worth $2,200. Not a hobby camera, her primary work tool, the piece of equipment she used to pay her rent, and she had no insurance to cover it. An independent contractor had lost a client's device that had been in his care during travel. His client did not accept the explanation. He was terminated for negligence over a theft he had no way of knowing had occurred and no power to prevent. The judge addressed Marcus Teller directly before delivering the sentence. You were not a low-level employee who stumbled into opportunity. You were a supervisor. You set the schedules. You knew the cameras. You knew which shifts had the least oversight. And you used every piece of that institutional knowledge to take from people who had no ability to protect themselves from you. The sentence, 51 months in federal prison, 2 years of supervised release, $94,000 in restitution, a permanent bar from federal employment, and full forfeiture of his pension. 19 years of accrual. Gone. Marcus Teller entered FCI Jessup, Georgia in November 2023. He will be eligible for release in 2027. He will be 45 years old. He will owe $94,000 that he has no clear way to pay. Patricia Teller's medical bills are current. The treatment is ongoing. She was not aware, at the time of sentencing, of where the money that kept her afloat had come from. That detail was not addressed in court. It sits in the record without resolution, like much else in this case. In August 2024, the TSA announced that all supervisory-level secondary inspections at the 25 busiest airports in the country would now require a co-witness officer to be present. The policy change that could have prevented this entire case was announced nearly 3 years after the first theft. No implementation deadline was set. Derek Okafor received his employer's ThinkPad back in the spring of 2024, asset tagged, evidence processed, and completely unusable. His TSA restitution claim remains outstanding. He told one reporter a single thing. "I didn't need a hidden camera. The laptop had a GPS chip that cost my company $11 to install. The TSA had the complaint. They just never looked at what was already there."